Chapter 854. Xian Palace. I didn't expect the Empress Dowager to like Miss Shen so much that she even gave her such a precious ruby jade. Everyone in the harem knew about the ruby jade, especially Nanny Zhu. It was a token of love given by the emperor to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager was reluctant to wear it, so she treasured it very much. When she missed the late emperor, she took it out and wiped it. Xian wiped the last ruby jade. I just wanted him to see that our Shang-Er finally met a woman he loved, just like when we were young. Xian smiled with relief. When he just left, he was always reluctant to leave us. He was worried that we would be bullied by others and could not die in peace. There were tears in Xian's eyes. For so many years, except for the time when the man died, she had been crying. Sometimes she thought that she should just follow him, but she still had Shang-Er. She knew she couldn't do that. If she really followed him, what would happen to Shang-Er? He was the only descendant of Dark North. She had to support him to grow up. She couldn't be so selfish. Nanny Zhu, why did time pass so fast? I always felt that I was still young. But yesterday, when I was combing my hair, I found that the black hair on my head had turned white. Even my face had a lot of wrinkles. And him. The scene last night seemed to be vivid in front of me, but when I thought about it carefully, I found that he had passed away for many years. I'm afraid that the pile of white bones had merged with the earth. There were tears in Xian's eyes, but she didn't cry. Instead, she reached out to wipe her tears. She had said that she would not cry. That man often said to her that in this world, everyone will die, but sooner or later. He said that he didn't leave. He just went to a place without people, a lonely place. He would watch her from afar and protect her and her son, who hadn't been young when they were young. Especially when she saw Shang-Er and Shen Yueji, they were very similar to her when they were young. First published on the New Bei Chinese website, especially Shen Yueji, this woman's temperament was very similar to his. Granny Zhu, although I feel sorry for Wn I have watched her grow up. Just because of her relationship with the Pang family and how much she has sacrificed for the Dark North Kingdom, I want her to become the queen of the Dark North Kingdom and stay with Shang-Er for the rest of her life. Although her methods are vicious, I know that her feelings for Shang-Er are real. As long as Shang-Er can look at her, she will do anything Shang-Er asks her to do. However, what's the use of me liking her? She shook her head and sighed. Shang-Er is Ari-Er's only son and Beiming's only descendant. Ari-Er has to think for him. Because of her, that man had sacrificed his harem of 3,000 beauties. She was the only one left, and she was the only one who bore his child. In a royal family, having no descendants was the most important thing. How could she let the beautiful land of the Northern Kingdom be destroyed in her hands? How could she let him be ashamed to face his father and the other members of the royal family of the Northern Kingdom? Sometimes, it was really a kind of pain to reminisce about the past. Speaking of which, it had been so long, at least a few decades. Xian had almost forgotten all the crazy things she did when she was young. Even her past with that man had been mostly forgotten. The fastest update on the internet if she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, WeChat followed Yudu literature. Chat about life and find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 855. But every time she thought about it, in addition to being nostalgic, she felt more heartache. The handsome and gentle man in her memory seemed to be as gentle as the wind only when he spoke to her. She still remembered it until now. She and he had promised to accompany each other until they grew old and never leave each other for the rest of their lives, but he had left her early. Xian gently wiped the jade ruby scepter in her hand and asked, "Nanny Zhu, am I really old?" Nanny Zhu knew that she was thinking about the past again. She also knew that after serving the Empress Dowager for so many years, the Empress Dowager seemed to be carefree and concerned about everyone on the surface. Only when no one was around, the Empress Dowager would show her sadness and helplessness in front of her. She didn't know why, but Nanny Zhu inexplicably felt sad in her heart. She had served the Empress Dowager for so many years. She had been by her side since the Empress Dowager was married. She had witnessed and witnessed how the Empress Dowager got to where she was and what she had experienced with the late emperor. She had also been moved and shed tears. She knew that the Empress Dowager was sad again. She smiled and said in a gentle tone, "What are you talking about, Empress Dowager? No matter how old you are, you still look beautiful and young, just like a little girl. How can you say that you are old? But I am really old." Xian turned to look at her and smiled. "Look." She pointed at herself in the mirror and said, "When I smile, there are so many wrinkles on my face. I don't know if he will think I am ugly when he sees me in the future." Empress Dowager, Nanny Zhu knelt on the ground with distress and put her hands on Empress Dowager's legs. After hearing Empress Dowager's words, Nanny Zhu's eyes turned red. "Empress Dowager, don't take it too hard. Have you forgotten what you promised the late emperor and what you promised me? You said that you would live well, and His Majesty. You also promised His Majesty, you said that you would raise the young prince well, you said that you would live well. When the late emperor passed away, the person in the world who was the most heartbroken and miserable was none other than the Empress Dowager." Nanny Zhu didn't even dare to think back. After the Empress Dowager heard the news of the late emperor's death, she started crying and throwing a tantrum, but in the end, she gradually became quiet. She didn't say a word and didn't pay attention to anyone. She seemed to be dead, or like a walking corpse. The death of a person was not scary, but the death of a heart was. That was the feeling the Empress Dowager gave her at that time. She was really afraid that the Empress Dowager would really take things too hard. She also knew that the late emperor and she were deeply in love. In this world, there was no one who could be more affectionate than them. The two of them treated each other as their own lives and truly loved each other. Even if she did not love them as passionately as they did, she knew that if one of them left, the other would be in so much pain that he would want to die. Feelings were hard to come by for the members of the royal family, especially since the heart of an emperor was fickle. However, the late emperor's feelings for the Empress Dowager had never changed. What was more, even the blooming flowers of brocade couldn't compare to the Empress Dowager's beautiful smile. When he was alive, what I remember most clearly was that I would often ask him, "Don't treat me so well. I'm afraid that I really can't leave you. If I don't have you, how am I supposed to live?" Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine. The Prince Regent gets into trouble with Claw Bookstore for free. Chapter 856. But he always said that treating me well has become a habit. He told me that even if something bad happens to him one day, I must live well. He said that as time passes, I will forget everything, including him, because he said that time is really a very good thing. It can make me forget everything. No matter how much I love him, as time passes, I will forget him completely. But Xian finally couldn't hold back her tears anymore. It dripped down her cheeks, boiling hot like water, and dripped onto her palms from her cheeks. She finally wanted to cry out loud. After enduring for so many years and being strong for so many years, this time, she finally couldn't hold it in any longer. In fact, she had never forgotten. Although that man had passed away more than 20 years ago, and although she had forced herself not to think about him and forget all the little things that happened between them, but her feelings for him and her longing for him had never been forgotten. She had never dared to forget. Seeing that Shong'er had a woman he loved, seeing the loving young couple, it was as if she saw the shadow of herself and him through them. Xian covered her mouth and hugged the only remaining Ruyi jade in her arms. "Do you see? Our child, our Shong'er, has finally grown up. I didn't let you down. I didn't let you down. The empire of the North Underworld is protected. I left the only descendant of the North Underworld for you. I did it." In the past, she thought that she couldn't do it. But all these years, she finally gritted her teeth and endured it. She did it. She really did it. Nanny Zhu looked at her with heartache. She knew that although she looked bright and beautiful, her heart was already full of holes. Perhaps from the moment the late emperor passed away, the Empress Dowager's heart also followed the late emperor. She also firmly believed that if it weren't for the emperor, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have been able to live until now. "Empress Dowager, you have to hold on. Soon, you will have a grandson. Look at how loving His Majesty and Miss Shen are. I believe that good news will come soon. Empress Dowager, now, you should live for yourself. Don't surround yourself in the darkness without light. I believe that the spirit of the late emperor in heaven also can't bear to see you like this. If the late emperor knew that you wash your face with tears every night, he would be so sad. Mobile Com. Xingyang Palace. My concubine has arrived. Shen Yueji had just woken up from her afternoon nap when she heard a sharp voice coming from outside. Her hand holding the teacup paused. My Fei Nyang Nyang? This name sounded strangely familiar. For a moment, Shen Yueji couldn't remember who this woman was. Your Highness, have you forgotten? Today in the Imperial Garden, didn't the servant beside the woman who was beaten by Wu Jiaoi say with a trembling voice that this my concubine is her concubine's master? Oh! After Double Happiness's reminder, Shen Yueji seemed to understand a little. She nodded and said, so it's her. No wonder she sounded so familiar. However, she had never met her before. Why would she come looking for her without any rhyme or reason? New Bei Chinese website, or was it because of what happened in the Imperial Garden today? Shen Yueji's lips curled up into a smile. If that's the case, then let her in. Although she said she was here to report to Shangguan Mai, without her permission, no matter how arrogant Shangguan Mai was, she would not be able to enter as she pleased. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend tilde. Chapter 857. Shuangxi respectfully accepted the order and went out to let her go. When Shen Yueji saw Shangguan Mai, she was still a little surprised. She was surprised that she had not only heard of her name in the Imperial Garden, but she had also heard of her in the back palace. When the servants in the back palace had nothing to do, they liked to gossip. Shangguan Mai had been gossiped about a few times in front of her. She was said to be well-educated and reasonable, beautiful and tactful, kind and amiable. Not only was her father a first-rank prime minister in the imperial court, she wasn't like imperial concubine Pang, who was spoiled and arrogant, cruel and merciless. Instead, she treated her servants very well, especially those servants in her chambers. She treated them like her own sisters. All the servants in the back palace hoped that they could have such a good master. One could imagine that Shangguan Mai's reputation in the palace had always been top-notch. Even the palace maids and servants who talked about the empress in private had the guts to talk about her in public. If Shangguan Mai became the empress, then the Beiming's back palace would have accumulated several generations of good karma. Shangguan Mai was only wearing a light yellow dress today. She had a voluptuous figure and was not fat. She had a perfect figure and a face that was as beautiful as a lotus flower. She was so beautiful that one couldn't take their eyes off her just by looking at her. The moment Shuangxi saw her, he was completely stunned. It was as if she couldn't believe that there was such a beautiful woman in this world. After all, in her eyes, her mistress's appearance was already one of the best in the world. But after seeing Shangguan Mai, Shuangxi realized that there was always someone better than her. She didn't mean that her mistress wasn't beautiful enough and couldn't compare to her in terms of beauty. In terms of beauty, she always stood on the side of her mistress. But in terms of figure, she stood on the side of Shangguan Mai. She really had a devilish figure that was mesmerizing. Looking at her, then looking at herself, Shuangxi finally understood what the difference was. She paid attention to maintaining her appearance every day. If she had a figure like Shangguan Mai's, she would probably wake up laughing even in her dreams. Shangguan Mai looked at the woman in front of her and was slightly surprised. She had thought that the person the emperor had brought back was a kind and tactful woman. However, after these few days, she had seen her behavior in the back palace. Although she hadn't come to see her, she was always monitoring her every move. Any reaction on her side naturally couldn't escape her discerning eyes. New Bei Chinese website. It was said that she was carefree and didn't care about anything, and the feeling she gave him now was the same. She could see through Pang Yuan's thoughts with just a glance. However, Shangguan Mai realized that she couldn't see through the woman in front of her no matter how hard she tried. Her gaze was almost glued to her, even though, however, she was still unable to see through the woman in front of her. Very quickly, she suppressed the astonishment in her heart and smiled slightly. Young Lady Shen is indeed like the rumors in the inner palace. Not to mention that you are devastatingly beautiful. Just this simple and elegant temperament is enough to make Bengong feel ashamed of my inferiority. My Fei Niang is too kind. In this world, who can be truly elegant and not care about worldly affairs? The so-called carefree and elegant temperament is just that one has seen through some things. Mobile phone M. O. Shangguan Mai raised her eyebrows. I don't know what young Lady Shen means by this. Bengong is untalented and would like to seek advice from young Lady Shen. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 858. If Imperial Concubine Mai wants to ask for advice, then it would be too much for me. To really talk about asking for advice, Imperial Concubine Mai is an old person in this palace. In these years, you must have experienced a lot of things. If you really want to talk about asking for advice, then it should be me asking Imperial Concubine Mai. These words made Shangguan Mai unable to restrain her laughter. She covered her lips and laughed softly. Miss Shen is really different from her. To speak the truth, I hope Miss Shen will not be angry. Previously, this consort had always thought that the reason you were able to gain the Emperor's favor was only because of your devastatingly beautiful face. Now, this consort doesn't think so. Which woman in the Imperial Harem doesn't want to gain the Emperor's favor? Which woman in the Imperial Harem doesn't want to show off after obtaining the Emperor's favor? They are afraid that others won't be able to see that you are able to gain the Emperor's favor. Shen Yueji smiled faintly and sat on a chair at the side. Even if the person in front of her was the second-grade Mai concubine of the Northern Sea, and her current identity was only that of a woman raised by the Emperor in the palace, without any title. But she could rely on the Emperor's favor and love for her to be so arrogant and not put any of the concubines in her eyes. Shangguan Mai was not like Pang Yuan. Seeing her like this, she would be filled with hatred. On the contrary, there was no displeasure on her face. Instead, she treated Shen Yueji with a bit of admiration and respect. According to the Emperor's current love for Miss Shen, I believe that before long, Miss Shen will be conferred as the Empress of the Northern Dark Kingdom. Miss Shen has done so much for the Northern Dark Kingdom. I believe that even the ministers in the court will not have any complaints if they know that Miss Shen is thinking of the Northern Dark Kingdom. My Fei Niang will not come to find me for no reason today. To be frank, I am not familiar with my Fei Niang. The ministers of the Northern Underworld, how they treat this concubine is their own business. What my Fei Niang is thinking, what you want to say, you might as well say it directly. Why do you need to beat around the bush? Moreover, I've always disliked interacting with people who beat around the bush. Miss Shen is a straightforward person. Since that's the case, Bengong will say everything. As she said this, she glanced at Double Happiness behind Shen Yueji and hesitated slightly. Double Happiness came to the Northern Underworld with me from Foam Country, and she is also a servant girl who grew up with me. We are as close as sisters, so why can't Imperial Concubine Mai say it? After all, everyone has different thoughts. The people of this world are all selfish. This Empress is also thinking for Miss Shen. At this point, Shangguan Mai paused and looked at Shen Lian. Based on Miss Shen's intelligence and wisdom, you should have guessed what Bengong wanted to say. Shen Yueji only found it funny and nodded. I do. Concubine Mai came to find me for two things. The first is the matter of Wu Jiaoyi in the Imperial Garden, and the second is the matter of Concubine Pang. According to the current situation, adding on what Concubine Mai said, you came here to make friends with me. Since I protected Wu Jiaoyi and allowed her to kill people, you didn't get angry. From this, it can be seen that you didn't come here for this matter. Then I deduced that since it isn't Wu Jiaoyi, it must be Concubine Pang. Chapter 859. Shangguan Mai showed an admiring expression. That's right, I did come for Imperial Consort Pang. To be precise, I came for you, Miss Shen. First, domain name, please remember. These words made Shen Yueji a little puzzled. She looked at her with a smile in her eyes. Please forgive my stupidity. I don't understand the meaning of Imperial Consort Mai's words. What do you mean by coming for me? Imperial Consort Pang is a vicious person. She relied on the fact that her father made great contributions to the Dark North Kingdom and was a loyal official of the Dark North Kingdom. He was like a brother to the late emperor and was highly regarded by the Empress Dowager. Even Pang Yuan was fostered by the Empress Dowager as her own daughter since she was a child. In these years in the palace, Pang Yuan relied on her birth and powerful background to kill countless innocent women in the harem. On the other hand, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor mostly covered up for her. To outsiders, they said that those women had intentions that shouldn't exist. They wanted to use Imperial Consort Pang, so that Imperial Consort Pang would pay them back in their own coin. In other words, they deserved to die. The ministers in the court watched their beloved daughters die in Pang Yuan's hands, but they dared not say anything. First, they were afraid of Grand Tutor Pang's identity. What they did was undoubtedly seeking their own death. Second, Pang Yuan was tyrannical in the harem. She was so vicious that even the Empress Dowager and the Emperor were indifferent. If they dared to submit a memorial to Pang Yuan, I'm afraid it wouldn't be good for them. During this period, Shen Yueji had been listening quietly. She didn't open her mouth to interrupt or say a word. Shangguan Mai always observed the expression on her face and did not miss a flash of light in her eyes. However, she still underestimated the woman in front of her. Until now, after so many things about Pang Yuan, Shen Yueji's expression did not change. It was as if she was listening to a stranger. If it was someone else who heard a stranger's behavior, they would interrupt and say something. However, Shen Yueji did not. Not only did she not, but she also did not have the slightest intention to interrupt. I heard that before Miss Shen came to the Dark North Kingdom, Imperial Consort Pang had joined forces with the people from the Dark Poison cult to kill Miss Shen on the way. Even Mr. Fui and Ji Chu, the trusted guards and close friends of the Emperor, almost died with Miss Shen on the way. Is this true? If Imperial Consort Mai said that you didn't fight for anything in the harem, others might believe it, others would believe it, but I don't it. The things that Pang Yuan did in private are only known by us. Even her biological father, who is the most powerful person in the court, knows about it. What else does he not know? However, Imperial Consort Mai, you seem to not care about the things in the palace, but you even know about such a secret like Imperial Consort Pang. Tell me, what else do you not know? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? These words, after all, can only rot in my heart forever and can never be said. What's more, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor both know about this. They have the intention to protect Pang Yuan. What else can I say? In this harem, everyone wants to climb up, but at the same time, everyone wants to protect themselves. I am no exception. Although my father is the first-grade Prime Minister of the Dark North Kingdom, it is not easy to be a first-grade Prime Minister. First published on the new August Chinese website. Com if you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat talk about life, find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 860. Once father makes a mistake, then regardless of whether it's the Empress Dowager, the Emperor, or even the Grand Preceptor, he has such a high position. Whether father is an official or a citizen, it's all up to him. How could Ben Gong dare to offend him? Since you don't dare to offend him, why are you telling me this? If I say that I feel like old friends with Miss Shen, I believe that Miss Shen will not believe me. Shen Yueji's lips curled up slightly. Not saying anything was better than expressing her stance. This was enough to prove to Shangguan Mai that she indeed would not believe her. The Emperor's love is rare. The love between a man and a woman in a normal family is only temporary. That's why it can reach this stage. With time, there will be a day when they get tired of it, let alone the Emperor's family. Miss Shen is so smart. I believe that you will understand even without me saying it in detail. Why don't you make other plans for the Emperor's love for you? Otherwise, when there's a time of danger in the future and the Emperor's love is gone, you won't be able to protect yourself. This time, Shen Yueji finally understood the meaning behind her words, and smiled slightly. "My Fei, do you want me to use the emperor?" Shangguan Mai's expression did not show any panic or fear from being exposed. After all, instigating a concubine to be disloyal to the emperor was a capital crime. Even if her father was a first-rank prime minister in the northern underworld, anyone who dared to have designs on the emperor would only face death. Shangguan Mai did not feel that there was anything wrong with this at all. She only said, "Miss Shen, I did not ask you to have designs on the emperor. I am only advising you to make plans for your future. After all, you are from the Foam Country. The northern underworld is thousands of miles away from the Foam Country. Furthermore, your father is a first-rank general in the Foam Country. He has great power in the court and is highly regarded by the Foam Country's emperor. You were previously the Foam Country's emperor's favorite concubine. For the emperor, you traveled thousands of miles to the northern underworld. Right now, I'm afraid your reputation in the Foam Nation has already plummeted. An imperial concubine eloping with another man. Where does the face of the Foam Nation's emperor go? There is indeed no place for me in the Foam Country, but there is in the Northern Sea. Just like concubine Mai said, the emperor dotes on me and is willing to stay in the harem. Everything goes according to my wishes. Let's not talk about how long this will last. It could be as short as a few days or as long as a few years, but it is enough for me. Is Miss Shen so confident in herself? What else? Shen Yueji raised her eyebrows. Seeing her like this, for some reason, Shangguan Mai suddenly smiled. She laughed softly and stared at Shen Yueji for a while. Chapter 861. Sometimes, even the Empress Dowager didn't dare to call the emperor's name so openly. However, this woman called him so skillfully. She had also called him like this in front of the emperor before. Was this woman's position in the emperor's heart that important? Even directly calling the emperor by his name, the emperor could still be so indulgent and not take it to heart. Huashin Originals, domain names. Please remember he did not miss the look of surprise that flashed across her face. Shen Yueji smiled. If there comes a day when Mo Wushong dislikes me, I will leave, and will not pester him. So, in the harem, those thoughts that imperial concubine Mai reminded me of, I disdain to do it, and I am also too lazy to do it. I'm afraid that imperial concubine Mai is using the wrong person to say these words to me. Mobile M. Com Shangguan Mai did not give up. Aren't you afraid? Shen Yueji looked at her. As you said, what should I be afraid of? She asked him so calmly. For a moment, Shangguan Mai did not know what to say. All the words that were at the tip of her tongue were stuck in her throat. Lady Shen, Bengong knows that the emperor likes you. Perhaps it is because of your calm character that the emperor likes you so much. Bengong also knows that you do not want to have any ideas about the emperor. It was Bengong who was rude just now. But Imperial Consort Pang, I'm just reminding you out of goodwill that you need to be on guard. Just the dark poison cult can be used by her, and there's also Onyx Soul. I believe I don't need to remind you, Miss Shen is such a smart person, you should know who is behind all this, right? Shangguan Mai was right. On the way to the northern underworld kingdom, they had encountered that black shop. Shen Yueji knew that everything was controlled by Pang Yuan. Speaking of which, she was really surprised. What was Pang Yuan's identity and background? If it was just a small imperial concubine Pang of the northern underworld, how could she be involved with so many evil sects in Jianghu? Moreover, Pang Shen did not know about this matter at all. Pang Shen was a righteous and outspoken person. He disdained the slightest bit of contact with the evil sects in Jianghu. Why was it that when it came to Pang Yuan, she was the leader of the crooked path? She was in the harem and did not know any martial arts. Seeing that Shen Lian's line of sight fell on her, Shangguan Mai smiled. I wonder if Miss Shen is willing to cooperate with me. Hearing her question, Shen Yueji raised her eyebrows calmly. Cooperate with you? That's right. Shangguan Mai nodded. Bengong also really values Shen young lady's character. Everyone has seen Imperial Consort Pang's actions in the inner palace all these years. Most of them only dare to be angry with Pang Yuan but do not dare to say anything. If they want to get rid of her, it would undoubtedly be because of the disparity in her status in the Pang family. But now, Miss Shen, You have His Majesty's love, and this Pangyuan has secretly tried to take your life many times. Previously, she dared to be so open and above board. Now that Miss Shun has entered Beiming's harem, I don't know how many cruel methods she will think of to deal with you. Miss Shun is a smart person and a righteous person. What she is afraid of is the thoughts of vile people. Being able to guard against it once is a fluke, but it does not mean that you can guard against it the second time. The Emperor's favor is just a flash in the pan. If she uses tricks to make you lose favor, it will not be a good thing for you. For her, Miss Shun, you are a fish on an iron plate, and she can slaughter you as she pleases. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 862. Some trifling matters in the court. Whether it was him throwing a fit in the imperial study, or seeing the woman's sleeping smile when he came back, all the anger and dissatisfaction in his heart disappeared like smoke in thin air. Xinba Chinese net him? I don't want to be the emperor anymore, okay? Shun Yueji didn't understand why he suddenly said this. She was still a little sleepy, but she couldn't help but open her eyes and look at him. Seeing the man's serious expression, even his eyes were full of love. I'll take you to travel around and see the great rivers and mountains outside. When you're tired, we'll find a beautiful place and settle down. Why not be the emperor? Right now, Dark North was inseparable from him. Because of the matter regarding the Southern Mountain Envoy, Feng Jiuqing could only temporarily give up on attacking Dark North. However, Dark North had previously been beheaded and executed by so many rebellious officials. Mo Wushang needed a long time to pacify them, otherwise, the man's large hand caressed the girl's delicate white face. If I didn't meet you, I might be the emperor of the North Sea for the rest of my life. But after I met you, I only want to be with you. Who gets the country and who dies has nothing to do with me. The young and handsome emperor's eyes were full of love for her. In his dark eyes, there was only her. It was different from Feng Jiuqing. Shun Yueji once saw in Feng Jiuqing's eyes, apart from her, there was also the Feng nation. But Mo Wushang. In the depths of his pitch-black eyes, in the deepest part of his gaze, there was only one person, her. Mo Wushang, will you regret it? You chose me and gave up the throne. I'm really afraid that one day, I'm not as good as you think I am. You'll regret it. The man pinched her little face lovingly. As long as you don't leave me, I'll never regret it. You don't have a child. If you leave, who will inherit the throne? You can't let the North Sea fall into someone else's hands and change your surname in the future. She knew that it wasn't easy for the Empress Dowager to bring him up to this point. She didn't want to be so selfish and let her years of hard work go to waste because of her. She knew the man would not care, he thought, if she said a word, an answer. Give me a child. On the computer, what? The man intimately bit her ear. Will give birth to a child for me. I will pass the throne to him. The Empress Dowager will be in charge of the government. You and I will travel around. Shun Yueji. The man's words were somewhat irresponsible, although she felt quite comfortable listening to it. Mo Wushang, a newborn baby can't leave his mother. He doesn't know anything yet, so how can he go to court? And the Empress Dowager, she's already so old. She used to be in charge of politics from behind the curtains when she took care of you. She can't possibly do the same when she takes care of your son in the future. Besides, even if I'm really pregnant, I may not be able to give birth to a son. The man kissed her little mouth. If it's a son, he'll be named the Crown Prince. If it's a daughter, she'll be named the Princess. In short, the throne of the North Sea is theirs. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. Shun Yueji, Shangguan Mai came by today. Shangguan Mai? Faced with her sudden change of topic, the man also frowned. For a moment, he couldn't remember who this person was. He could only vaguely tell from the name that it was a woman. He looked at Shun Yueji and slowly had an impression of her. He knew that this woman's father was a first-grade prime minister in the court. If he wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a bosom friend tilde. Chapter 863. Sometimes, I really want to crack open your head and see what's in that little head of yours. When did I say anything about cooperating with her? But miss, if you don't want to work with her, you talked to her for so long. Does talking for so long mean you agreed to work with her? In the past, if you didn't like anyone, you would have asked me to chase them away. Why would you waste so much time with that woman? Seeing that Shin Yueji was about to hit her again, Shuangshi was so scared that she covered her head and jumped far away. Miss, stop hitting me. It hurts. The situation is different, so the people you face are different. Think about who Shangguan Mai is. Miss Pang Yuan, you're not afraid, but Shangguan Mai? Afraid? Shin Yueji suddenly laughed. To be honest, I'm not afraid. However, Shangguan Mai's reputation in the palace is much better than Pang Yuan's. Moreover, she's the one who came to work with me. If I reject her, I'm afraid the people in the palace will be unhappy. Then, miss, are you planning to work with her or keep her in suspense? But there's one thing that Shangguan Mai is right. I don't know where Pang Yuan got her ability to make friends with so many evil people in the pugilistic world. Even Pang Shen doesn't know about this. What if? You want me to work with Shangguan Mai? Mobile phone M. Com New August 1st Chinese website. Let's not talk about Shangguan Mai's intentions. At least, it's true that she wants to get rid of Pang Yuan. Moreover, if you work with her, then for a period of time in the future, Shangguan Mai will be on your side. I can't be sure in the future, but at least for now, you're allies on the same front. Actually, Shin Yueji had thought about what Shuangshi said, but she frowned. Just from the conversation just now, it's hard to see that this woman is very scheming. I don't want to have much contact with such a person. That's true. Shuangshi nodded cooperatively. Miss, you have the son-in-law. No matter how powerful Pang Yuan is, how can she be more powerful than the son-in-law? Hearing this, Shin Yueji did not refute. Thinking of the man's handsome face, a faint smile hung on her lips. Perhaps it was right for her to boldly take this step. Because Mo Wushang was truly her lover. Mo Wushang returned very late this time, perhaps because he had matters to attend to in the imperial court. As for Shin Yueji, the man had not returned from the imperial study, so she had been waiting for him in Zhengyang Palace. She had been waiting for him until she fell asleep. Shuangshi had also tried to persuade her several times, but she had rejected him. Seeing that Shuangshi was sleepy, she asked her to go back to sleep first. Shuangshi tried to persuade her several times, but to no avail. He could only respectfully accept the order and retreat. During this period, W.N. Qing had also come to see her a few times. Because she was injured, Shin Yueji told her to recuperate from her injuries first and not to worry about her. Sleepiness hit her. She crawled on the coffee table and took a nap for a while. Unexpectedly, she really fell asleep. When she woke up again, it was not the cold table under her body, but the warm embrace of a man. Shin Yueji looked up and saw Mo Wushang's handsome face. She couldn't help but be startled. After a long time, she said, "You're back?" Mo Wushang gently touched her pretty nose. "Since you're sleepy, why don't you go to sleep first? I want to wait for you to come back." Shin Yueji smiled and rested her head on the man's arm again. "What kept you busy for so long? If you want to talk about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble with more like-minded people, follow you read literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend tilde." Chapter 864. I don't care about Pang Yuan. Moreover, I can deal with her. You don't need to help me. It's easy to abolish her. I only have evidence against her if she does something wrong. If you abolish her, not only will Grand Tutor Pang not say anything, even the ministers in the court will shut their mouths. The only person I'm guarding against now is Shangguan Mai. Because I found that Shangguan Mai is more scheming and shrewd than Pang Yuan. It's not scary to kill someone fiercely. What's scary is that this woman comes to kill you with a smile. It's hard to guard against a gentle and kind smile. Mo Wushang saw that she didn't want him to interfere in her affairs, so he didn't ask anymore. Instead, he tapped the tip of her nose and smiled softly. General Shun sent a letter. Father sent a letter? Shin Yueji's eyes lit up. She immediately got up from the man's arms. Where's the letter? Let me see it. Ian, I'll get it for you. Mo Wushang's dark eyes flashed. He got up and went out of the inner hall. Shin Yueji tidied up her clothes on the bed. When she was almost done, she quickly dressed up and followed him out. The man was sitting on the dragon desk with a letter in his hand. When he saw her come out, he handed the letter to her. Shin Yueji looked at the letter that hadn't been opened yet. She was stunned. Didn't you read it? A trace of awkwardness flashed across the man's handsome face. This is written by General Shun for you. For some reason, Shin Yueji felt it was funny to see the man's expression. She sat on his lap. So what if it's written for me? But the addressee is you. What kind of relationship do we have? What's wrong with taking a look? She opened the letter and glanced at the contents. When the man leaned over, she quickly folded the letter and didn't let him read it. The corner of her mouth twitched for a long time. She straightened the man's handsome face. I think it's right that you don't read it. After all, we shouldn't wash our dirty linen in public. She thought that he would write to her at this time about Feng country. For example, she was worried that they would be implicated by Feng Joching because of her. Let's not talk about these things first. The content of the letter wasn't mentioned at all. The fastest update on the internet mobile .com. The general content was about how Shin Yukai abused them in a perverted manner when she was not in the Foam Kingdom, how she was not filial to them, and how they cursed her to be struck by lightning. On the computer, on the other hand, there were those who missed her filial piety and said that she had been filial to them all these years. However, after she left, Shin Yukai, the man looked at the envelope curiously. What's written on it? It's just some family gossip. It's fine if you don't read it. Shin Yueji smiled bitterly. She thought that he had settled some matters in Foam Nation and was planning to come over to arrange some itineraries. Who knew that a letter with a few hundred words was all about Shin Yukai? He didn't know what Shin Yukai did to make them so angry. However, on second thought, Shin Yueji guessed that Shin Yukai probably didn't do anything. Shin He and Shin Chiu probably missed her too much after she left, so no matter how they looked at her, they didn't like her. So, say, Shin Yueji and Shin Yukai are both children of old General Shun and Mrs. Shun. Why is there such a huge difference in treatment? The man laughed. Maybe General Shun is different from others. If you want to talk about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble with more like-minded people, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find bosom friends Tilda. Chapter 865. He had personally experienced his uniqueness when he stayed in the Shun Mansion for a few days. It's the annual Lantern Festival in the North Sea in 5 days. Do you want to go? Out of the palace? Yes. Shin Yueji originally had some expectations in her heart, but on second thought, Mo Wushang still had a lot of matters to deal with in court, and it was rare for him to have some free time. She still wanted this man to rest more, and not continue to take her to see the lanterns. It's just the Lantern Festival. There's plenty of time next year. If you're free, take a good rest. Jia, I'm not tired. He held Shin Yueji in his arms and smelled her unique fragrance. He closed his eyes in satisfaction. As long as you're by my side, I don't feel tired. Jia, the palace is a cage. I know you're not familiar with anything here, and there's no one you can make friends with here. Every time he finished his work, he just wanted to spend more time with her. He didn't want her to feel helpless in the palace alone. They're all people with ulterior motives. But that Wu Jiaoyi from the day before yesterday is not bad. Before you came back last night, she asked her maid to send me a box of her family's specialty. Do you want to try it? It was her family's jujube, and it tasted quite sweet. Wu Jiaoyi. The man kissed her cheek. He seemed to have some impression of this person. He had never heard Wu Jiaoyi praise another woman. This Wu Jiaoyi must have something special about her to be able to catch her attention. The one in the Imperial Garden last time. Have you forgotten? www.com. Yes, I don't want to remember any other woman except you. Shun Yueji was speechless. Do you think I should reply to my father and the others? Ask them when they plan to come to the North Sea? Wasn't it too obvious? If the letter was intercepted by someone and reached Feng Joqing, Shun Yueji suddenly thought of something when she mentioned Feng Joqing. Feng Joqing was seriously injured. I don't know how he is now. Have you received any news from the Feng country? Feng Joqing from Shun Yueji's mouth is like a taboo. The man's deep eyes flashed, looking at her. As smart as she was, how could she not know what the man was thinking? Mo Wushang, I don't have any feelings for him now. I just think that if he is seriously injured, father and the rest will not be able to leave. If they leave and other countries find out that the Feng nation's emperor is seriously injured and unconscious, they will definitely move against the Feng nation. In this way, the ones who will suffer will be the innocent citizens. As a loyal subject of the Feng kingdom, father will definitely not let those innocent people be put in dire straits. Shun He was a very open-minded person when it came to certain things, but when it came to loyalty, he was stubborn. His Shun family had always protected not the emperor but the common people. Only if Feng Joqing woke up and was able to take charge of the court would he feel at ease coming to the northern underworld. As long as Feng Joqing did not wake up, she believed that Shun He would not come. The fastest network update mobile M.com. There is indeed some news from the Feng nation, but he paused and looked at Shun Yueji. It's about you. About me? 3 days ago, Feng Joqing woke up, but when he heard that you came to the northern underworld, he vomited blood and fainted again. Shun Yueji was speechless. Shouldn't she admire herself for being able to make Feng Joqing vomit blood? If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 866. I don't care about Pang Yuan. Moreover, I can deal with her. You don't need to help me. It's easy to abolish her. I only have evidence against her if she does something wrong. If you abolish her, not only will Grand Tutor Pang not say anything, even the ministers in the court will shut their mouths. The only person I'm guarding against now is Shangguan Mai. Because I found that Shangguan Mai is more scheming and shrewd than Pang Yuan. It's not scary to kill someone fiercely. What's scary is that this woman comes to kill you with a smile. It's hard to guard against a gentle and kind smile. Mo Wushang saw that she didn't want him to interfere in her affairs, so he didn't ask anymore. Instead, he tapped the tip of her nose and smiled softly. General Shun sent a letter. Father sent a letter? Shun Yueji's eyes lit up. She immediately got up from the man's arms. Where's the letter? Let me see it. Ian, I'll get it for you. Mo Wushang's dark eyes flashed. He got up and went out of the inner hall. Shun Yueji tidied up her clothes on the bed. When she was almost done, she quickly dressed up and followed him out. The man was sitting on the dragon desk with a letter in his hand. When he saw her come out, he handed the letter to her. Shun Yueji looked at the letter that hadn't been opened yet. She was stunned. Didn't you read it? A trace of awkwardness flashed across the man's handsome face. This is written by General Shun for you. For some reason, Shun Yueji felt it was funny to see the man's expression. She sat on his lap. So what if it's written for me? But the addressee is you. What kind of relationship do we have? What's wrong with taking a look? She opened the letter and glanced at the contents. When the man leaned over, she quickly folded the letter and didn't let him read it. The corner of her mouth twitched for a long time. She straightened the man's handsome face. I think it's right that you don't read it. After all, we shouldn't wash our dirty linen in public. She thought that Shun He would write to her at this time about Feng country. For example, she was worried that they would be implicated by Feng Joqing because of her. Let's not talk about these things first. The content of the letter wasn't mentioned at all. The fastest update on the internet mobile M.com. The general content was about how Shin Yukai abused them in a perverted manner when she was not in the Foam Kingdom, how she was not filial to them, and how they cursed her to be struck by lightning. On the computer, on the other hand, there were those who missed her filial piety and said that she had been filial to them all these years. However, after she left, Shin Yukai, the man looked at the envelope curiously. What's written on it? It's just some family gossip. It's fine if you don't read it. Shin Yueji smiled bitterly. She thought that he had settled some matters in Foam Nation and was planning to come over to arrange some itineraries. Who knew that a letter with a few hundred words was all about Shin Yukai? He didn't know what Shin Yukai did to make them so angry. However, on second thought, Shin Yueji guessed that Shin Yukai probably didn't do anything. Shin He and Shin Chiu probably missed her too much after she left, so no matter how they looked at her, they didn't like her. So, say, Shin Yueji and Shin Yukai are both children of old General Shun and Mrs. Shun. Why is there such a huge difference in treatment? The man laughed. Maybe General Shun is different from others. If you want to talk about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble with more like-minded people, follow you read literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find bosom friends Tilda. Chapter 867. She rolled her eyes at her and said, "You silly girl." Schwong, she chuckled. After the joy, she became gloomy again. "Miss, did the general and his wife send a letter? www.com. Coming." After washing up, Shin Yueji sat on the round chair beside the tea table and was about to eat. Hearing Double Happiness's muffled voice, she looked at her and said without hesitation, "Coming. Why didn't Miss tell this servant?" It was only yesterday when this servant and Ji Chu were chatting that he told this servant. Shin Yueji laughed and said, "What's there to tell? Didn't I tell you? Father and mother will come sooner or later. Besides, the walls have ears. It's better to let less people know about this. What if the other women in the North Underworld's harem find out? Especially Pang Yuan." She suspected that Pang Yuan must have someone in Foam Country. Otherwise, she wouldn't know everything that happened in Foam Country. If she knew that Shun He wanted to go to North Underworld, what happened in Xian Palace didn't count. Her words alone weren't enough to win people's trust. If she knew that Shun He wanted to go to North Underworld now, she was afraid that she was conspiring with Feng Joching behind his back. Double Happiness was excited and said, "Miss, did the general say when he will come?" "I don't know about that." Shin Yueji shook her head and said, "I heard from your son-in-law that Feng Joching was originally awake. After knowing that I eloped with another man, he vomited blood and fainted. It's been so long, he should have woken up by now." "Ah," Double Happiness covered her mouth in shock and said, "His Majesty vomited blood because of you?" Shin Yueji rolled her eyes and said, "How do you know he did it for me? Wasn't it because I eloped with another man and caused him, the emperor of a country, to lose all his face?" "That's true. But how did the general deal with this? While he was in the Northern Underworld, he didn't hear anything from the Foam Kingdom. Even the general and the others were safe and sound. Originals, domain names, please remember no matter what, father is still a first-rank official in the Imperial Court. Many officials in the Imperial Court are attached to him. Even those officials who were once on bad terms with him don't dare to add oil to the fire because of His Majesty's serious injuries. The Imperial Court is in need of manpower. They will only protect father and not do anything to father. Right now, I just want father to come to the Northern Underworld as soon as possible. I have a feeling that if they continue to stay in the Foam Nation, something will definitely happen." Schwong, she nodded. Since the General and Furen have already promised young Miss to serve son-in-law, then the General and Furen will definitely come. It's just a matter of time. She knew that the young Miss's worries were not about the General and his wife's safety. "Don't worry, Miss. The General and Madam are protected by secret guards, so there won't be any danger. Also, the eldest young master, although he is usually unreliable, he is also an extremely intelligent person. Miss, you don't have to be afraid. There's always a chance. I'm just worried. Hopefully, my worries are unnecessary." Shin Yueji sighed. Originally, she thought that after her rebirth, she would have no one to worry about. However, the Shun couple treated her sincerely, so the only people she was worried about now were them. Miss Shun, Nanny Zhu requests to see you. At this moment, Wn Qing came in from outside and said respectfully, Nanny Zhu. Shun Yueji didn't expect her to come back at this time. Thinking that she was the Empress Dowager's servant, she said, invite her in. Yes. If you want to talk about explosively cute concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow UU Literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 868. After all, in her eyes, Feng Juqing was a man who lived a carefree life. Other than his empire, he really did not care about anything else. He did not care about anything else, including the relationship between a man and a woman. In his eyes, it was not worth mentioning at all. Even when he said that he liked her and wanted her to be his empress, in fact, in his eyes, once she posed any threat to his throne or the country, he would abandon her without the slightest hesitation. She did not believe that he really loved her. If he really liked her, perhaps he liked her a little, but this love could not withstand scheming and interests. The fastest update on the netmobile M.com. To be honest, when Feng Juqing found out that she eloped with another man, and that man was Mo Wushang, was he angry that she betrayed him, or angry that he lost to Mo Wushang and was unwilling? Forget it. She thought seriously for a while, I have to reply to my parents first, so that they can make plans to come to the North Underworld as soon as possible. Mo Wushang looked at her with a smile, he described you as worse than your brother. Men were rarely so humorous. When he said this, Shun Yueji could not help but look at him a few more times. However, she agreed with what he said. She nodded, yes, only if I describe myself as worse than my brother, my parents will come early. The main thing was that she was afraid that, before Feng Juqing had time to suspect Shun He, she had to persuade them to come as soon as possible. Feng Juqing was not a fool. She had been deceived by him at that time. Over the past 9 years, she had come to understand him well. At the very least, she had a good grasp of his temperament and thoughts. Feng Juqing could not find out now, but it did not mean that he would not find out in the future. If she did not get Shun He and Shun Qiu to the North Underworld, she was afraid that if Feng Juqing found out something, then, after thinking for a while, she took out a piece of paper, spread it out in front of her, and considered a few words that she was not afraid of being cut off by others. After sitting on the man's lap and writing for a while, Shun Yueji turned her body to let the man see. What do you think about replying to them like this? Mo Wushang glanced at it and took the brush from her hand. He added a few more words before nodding his head in satisfaction. It's done. Shun Yueji could only see some outlines. It mentioned Pang Yuan and Shangguan Mai, but when she looked at it, the man folded the paper, put it in the envelope, and ordered Ji Chu to deliver the letter. What did you write? Shun Yueji turned to look at him curiously. The man pinched her little nose lovingly. Something that can make old General Shun rush over as soon as possible. Shun Yueji. 3 days later Mo Wushang didn't even have breakfast and went to the imperial study early to deal with official business. Before he left, he did not forget to instruct Shuangxi to wake up and eat breakfast. Shun Yueji didn't stay in bed for long before Double Happiness pulled her out of bed. She angrily threw it at her. Is it because I've been indulging you these days that you don't even put me in your eyes? He had even forgotten the most basic difference between master and servant. First published on the new August Chinese website, she thought that after saying this, Double Happiness would be more or less well behaved. Who knew that she would come forward to put on her clothes with a disapproving look? Miss, now who is serving who? Hurry up and wash up and eat. It's not good to stay in bed. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Regent, get into trouble, WeChat, talk about life, find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 869. She rolled her eyes at her and said, "You silly girl." Shuangxi chuckled. After a while, she became gloomy again. Miss, did the general and his wife send a letter? Coming. After washing up, Shin Yueji sat on the round chair beside the tea table and was about to eat. Hearing Double Happiness's muffled voice, she looked at her and said without hesitation, coming. Why didn't Miss tell this servant? It was only yesterday when this servant and Ji Chu were chatting that he told this servant. Shin Yueji laughed and said, what's there to tell? Didn't I tell you? Father and mother will come sooner or later. Besides, the walls have ears. It's better to let less people know about this. If the other women in the North Underworld harem find out, especially Pang Yuan. She suspected that Pang Yuan must have someone in the Foam Kingdom. Otherwise, she wouldn't know everything that happened in the Foam Kingdom. If she knew that Shun he wanted to go to the North Underworld, what happened in Xian Palace didn't count. Her words alone weren't enough to convince people. If she knew that Shun he wanted to go to the North Underworld now, she was afraid that she was conspiring with Feng Joching behind his back. Double Happiness was excited and said, Miss, did the general say when he will come? I don't know. Shun Yueji shook her head and said, I heard from your son-in-law that Feng Joching was originally awake. After knowing that I eloped with another man, he vomited blood and fainted. It's been a long time, he should be awake now. Double Happiness covered her mouth in shock and said, His Majesty vomited blood because of you, miss? Shun Yueji rolled her eyes and said, How do you know he did it for me? Wasn't it because I eloped with another man and caused him, the emperor of a country, to lose all his face? That's true. But how did the general deal with this? When they were in the North Underworld, they didn't hear anything from the Foam Kingdom. Even the general and the others were safe and sound. Originals, domain names, please remember no matter what, father is still a first-rank official in the Imperial Court. Many officials in the Imperial Court are attached to him. Even those officials who were once on bad terms with him don't dare to add oil to the fire because of His Majesty's serious injuries. The Imperial Court is in need of manpower. They will only protect father and not do anything to father. Right now, I just want father to come to the Northern Underworld as soon as possible. I have a feeling that if they continue to stay in the Feng Nation, something will definitely happen. She nodded. Since the General and Furen have already promised young Miss to serve son-in-law, then the General and Furen will definitely come. It's just a matter of time. She knew that the young Miss's worries were not about the General and his wife's safety. Don't worry, Miss. The General and Madam are protected by secret guards, so there won't be any danger. Also, the eldest young master, although he is usually unreliable, he is also an extremely intelligent person. Miss, you don't have to be afraid. There's always a chance. I'm just worried. Hopefully, my worries are unnecessary. Shin Yueji sighed. Originally, she thought that after her rebirth, she would have no one to worry about. However, the Shun couple treated her sincerely, so the only people she was worried about now were them. Miss Shun, Nanny Zhu requests to see you. At this moment, W.N. Qing came in from outside and said respectfully, Nanny Zhu. Shun Yueji didn't expect her to come back at this time. Thinking that she was the Empress Dowager's servant, she said, invite her in. Yes. If you want to talk about explosively cute concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow UU Literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 870. Miss, why did Nanny Zhu come to Xingyang Palace at this time? Hearing that Nanny Zhu wanted to see Shuangxi was stunned. She probably didn't expect Empress Dowager's nanny to come here. Or did Empress Dowager want to see her miss? Nanny Zhu must come to Xingyang Palace because of Empress Dowager. I'll ask her when she comes in. Oh. Shuangxi shut her mouth and said no more. In fact, Shuangxi liked Nanny Zhu very much. Besides, Nanny Zhu had said those heartfelt words to her before. How could an ordinary person say those words to her? Miss Shun. After Nanny Zhu came in, she bowed to Shin Yueji and said respectfully, without any sense of dominance. Shin Yueji saw her and smiled. Nanny Zhu, why do you come to see me at this time? Oh, Empress Dowager asked me to invite Miss Shun to have a meal. A meal? Shun Yueji looked at the table full of delicacies that had yet to be touched and hesitated. As the saying goes, she didn't want to waste food. Miss Shun hasn't even touched her chopsticks yet. Take them away and let those servants eat. After all, it was a great honor to be rewarded by the master. Okay. Empress Dowager gave her a jade ruyi not long ago. She wouldn't go if Empress Dowager didn't invite her. But if she did, she had to respect Empress Dowager. Shuang Shi. Miss, dress me up and come with me to Xian Palace to see Empress Dowager. Yes. Shuang Shi didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly followed Shun Yueji into the palace to dress her up. After about 15 minutes, she looked at Mrs. Makeup and hesitated. Miss, why did Empress Dowager ask you to have a meal? This. First published on the August 1st Chinese website. Com. What are you worried about? Empress Dowager is a good person. She won't be like Pang Yuan. Maybe she wants to know me better. Oh. She walked out of the hall and was led by Nanny Zhu. Soon, they arrived at Xian Palace. In Xian Palace, Empress Dowager Xian had been waiting for her for a while. The delicious food on the table hadn't been eaten yet. The dishes were covered to prevent the food from getting cold. The moment he saw her, Xian's eyes moved. Shun Yueji was about to bow. There's no need. We'll be a family in the future. There's no need for you to perform these complicated rituals on me. Just do whatever His Majesty wants you to do. Yes, Empress Dowager. Xian looked at her and faintly smiled. Quickly sit beside me. Yes. I heard that Shuangxi grew up with you. You two are as close as sisters. When you're together, there aren't many rules. Since that's the case, let's sit together. Originals, domain names. Please remember the one who was surprised was not Shun Yueji, but Shuangxi. She opened her mouth in shock and looked at the Empress Dowager, not knowing what to do, and then looked at Shun Yueji. After all, she was just a servant. How could she sit in front of her master? Miss Double Happiness, feel free to sit. This servant is the same as the Empress Dowager. I've been by the Empress Dowager's side for so many years. I've long since sat at the same table as the Empress Dowager. Nanny Zhu had already sat down. Shuangxi couldn't say anything more. Under Shun Yueji's nod, she also sat down. However, opposite her was the Empress Dowager of the North Underworld. Although she sat down as the Empress Dowager said, she was still a little nervous. Looking at Xian's friendly and approachable appearance, Shun Yueji didn't know him very well. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, WeChat talk about life and find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 871. But today, it was too unimaginable. It was unimaginable to the point that it caused her to be on guard. This fishball was Ijia's favorite dish when I was young. It was very troublesome to make. When the late emperor was alive, he often got angry at the servants in the imperial kitchen because of this dish. Just because they didn't make enough food, and she couldn't eat to her heart's content every time. I heard from the people in the palace that the late emperor dispersed the 3,000 beauties in the harem for the Empress Dowager, and only favored the Empress Dowager. Xian smiled when he heard this, and his voice was full of nostalgia. It's all spread by the people in the harem, alas. If it wasn't true, who would dare to spread the news in the palace, especially about the emperor and the empress, unless they didn't want to keep their heads? Seeing you and Shong are so loving, Ijia seems to see myself and the late emperor when they were young. It's really worth remembering. Ijia can see that Shonga likes you very much. He cares more about you than when the late emperor doted on Ijia. Shun Yueji didn't speak. Ijia only has this one son. In addition, the northern underworld only has this one emperor. It wasn't easy for Ijia to raise him. The bitterness of it is not something that Ijia can describe with a few words. While speaking, Xian picked up another piece of meat and put it in her bowl. Shonga doesn't like to smile since he was a child. This has something to do with the place he grew up in. Every day, he is deeply involved in the struggle of deception and deception. He knows the mission he carries. Ijia also feels distressed to see him like this, But Ijia can't help it. He is the emperor of the northern underworld, the only son of the late emperor. It wasn't until I met you that I felt a sense of humanity from him. Other than that woman, you were the second woman who made him feel like a normal person. In fact, Shinyueji didn't need to think carefully to know who the woman she was talking about was. It was undoubtedly not the eldest daughter of the Jiyu family, Jiyu Yuqin, but herself. Ijia hopes that he can be a good emperor for the northern underworld and for the innocent people of the northern underworld. But Ijia hopes that he can be a normal person, have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and spend his life with the woman he likes. He is willing to believe in you. I am also willing to believe in you. Don't disappoint me, okay? Empress Dowager, since I have chosen to follow His Majesty, I will be loyal to him for the rest of my life. Empress Dowager can rest assured. From the moment she chose to follow Mo Wushang, it didn't matter if he was the emperor or not. She only wanted to be with the man she liked. The fastest network update mobile M.com. The Empress Dowager smiled mysteriously. I don't want to think about how you were in the Feng Nation before, nor do I want to bother about it. However, now that you're here in the northern underworld, I only have one thing to tell you. The northern underworld's harem cannot be compared to your Feng Nation's harem. The harem is a huge divat. Any woman who enters the harem, no matter how naive they used to be, will eventually become vicious. Humans are born selfish. Everything they do is for themselves. When I was young, I also made many close friends. I thought we could be good sisters forever, but in the end, it was all for ourselves. Will remember Empress Dowager's reminder. Moreover, Shinyueji didn't plan to make many friends. Lu Qingru was once her best friend, and she gave up everything for her. The fastest network update computer. I want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine. Prince Regent gets into trouble. Chat about life. Find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 872. But after knowing her feelings for her, she began to resist her. New Bei Chinese website. Speaking of which, she should have returned to the northern underworld and gone to the Xianming sect, right? The fastest network update mobile M.com. She hadn't seen her in a while. As for her, she did not know what had happened and did not take the initiative to look for her. Empress Dowager, you don't know how to call WNR when you have good food, but you call Shinyueji instead. Pang Yuan's dissatisfied voice came from outside. After hearing her voice, everyone's expression changed. Only Shinyueji still had a calm expression on her face. Senior servant Zhu hurriedly stood up. Greetings, Imperial Consort Niang. Pang Yuan glanced at her with a smile. Bengong can't accept Zhu Momo's gift. Quickly sit down, quickly sit down. As she spoke, she quickly walked to the Empress Dowager's side, took the initiative to hold the Empress Dowager's arm, and sat on the Empress Dowager's right side. On the left side of Ci and was Shinyueji. She picked up a piece of vegetable and placed it in the Empress Dowager's bowl. Really, some people have no eyesight at all. The Empress Dowager is an elder, the Empress Dowager of a country. Why don't you think about your own status? How can you let the Empress Dowager put food in your bowl? The Empress Dowager loves to eat these. Wana gave them to you, and this piece of meat. Imperial concubine Pang, the Empress Dowager is an elder. As an elder, it's better for her to eat more vegetables. It's good for her body. If she eats more meat. Shinyueji, what do you mean? Do you still think that this consort can harm the Empress Dowager? Shinyueji smiled faintly. Imperial consort has misunderstood. I am only thinking of the Empress Dowager's health. It is not as you say, that I am deliberately causing trouble for you. In Pang Yuan's eyes, Shinyueji was deliberately making trouble for her. She had just picked a piece of meat for the Empress Dowager, but Shinyueji directly said that the Empress Dowager was an elder and it wasn't good to eat meat. The Empress Dowager had such a noble status. If she wanted to eat the best, she would wear the best. Why should she be a vegetarian? Oh. Soon, her eyes narrowed dangerously. Do you mean that you despise the Empress Dowager for being old? I didn't say that. I was just reminding you out of goodwill. Besides, when you reach a certain age, you can't just not accept it, right? Some people like to listen to flattery, even if they know that the flattery is a lie, some people still enjoy listening to it. It just so happens that I'm not a person who likes to lie. Compared to flattery, one's body is more important. I'm just reminding you out of goodwill and telling you the truth. Pang Yuan gritted her teeth fiercely. This slut had a sharp tongue. She knew that she couldn't win against this slut. Since he couldn't win, he might as well not say anything. She glared at her fiercely and continued to put meat into the Empress Dowager's bowl. Not long after, the empty bowl in front of the Empress Dowager was immediately filled with meat. Just looking at the greasy meat made people lose their appetite. It was okay to eat less of this kind of meat, but if there was too much, it would make people nauseous. Xian didn't like eating meat, especially this kind of greasy meat. She preferred to eat fish. She felt that fish was light and good for the body. Pang Yuan was obviously angry with Shen Yueji and used her as a shield. The older she was, the less meat she could eat. Pang Yuan put more meat into her bowl. There was a hint of threat in her expectant eyes. It was obvious that she wanted her to eat all the meat and then prove to Shen Yueji that she liked to eat meat and could eat a lot of meat. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 873. She clapped her hands. Xiao came in with something covered with a red cloth. She looked quite mysterious. Pang Yuan smiled proudly. Empress Dowager, guess what kind of treasure WNA found for you? Oh, I didn't know that WNA cares about me. You even know to give me a gift. This was quite beyond Xian's expectation. She smiled with her eyes slightly narrowed. She followed her words and said, what will WNA give me? Let Ari Jiao think about it carefully. www.com. She thought for a long time, but she really couldn't figure out what Pang Yuan would give her. She shook her head. WNA, it's really hard for me, this old woman. I really don't know what you are selling. Let Xiao lift the red cloth and let me see. Why are you giving Ari Jiao a gift out of nowhere? She was the Empress Dowager of the Northern Underworld. She didn't care about ordinary gifts. Pang Yuan's status was not low, so the gift she gave must not be simple. As expected, although Xiao lifted the red cloth mysteriously, she saw that under the red cloth, there was a white fox fur sable. Its fur was of the highest quality. Moreover, it was rare to find such a large fox with such smooth fur in the Dark North Kingdom. Even the wives of the aristocratic families in the capital could not achieve such a glossy fur. It was the only one of its kind. Empress Dowager, look, this fox fur sable was something WNA obtained with great difficulty. As soon as WNA obtained it, I immediately gave it to you to show my filial piety. The weather is getting cold, so you can use this fox fur sable to make some clothes. Pang Yuan didn't notice the great change of Xian's expression. She was still complacent. Caught off guard, she was slapped in the face. She was so shocked that her whole body froze for a moment. When she saw that it was Xian who slapped her, she covered her face and stared at her in disbelief. Empress Dowager, what did I do wrong? Why did you hit me? Fox fur. Pang Yuan, I thought you were straightforward, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Out of anger, Xian's chest heaved up and down. There was no time to reprimand him. As soon as he finished speaking, his vision suddenly darkened, and he fainted. Nanny Zhu reacted quickly and reached out to support Xian, who was on the verge of collapse, in her arms. As Xian fainted, Shuangxi was also shocked. I'll go call the imperial physician. There's no need, Miss Double Happiness. The Empress Dowager is just angry. It won't be a problem. She'll be fine after resting for a while. Nanny Zhu stopped Shuangxi and helped Xian into the inner hall. She quickly came out and looked at Pang Yuan, whose face was pale from fright and unable to speak. Since Guifei Nyang is sincerely filial to the Empress Dowager, you should know what to avoid and ask about the things that the Empress Dowager doesn't like. so as to avoid making a fool of yourself. This servant will not tell His Majesty about this matter. I also hope that Guifei Nyang Nyang will take care of herself. Pang Yuan didn't know what had happened at all. She loved the fox fur sable so much that she couldn't put it down. Originally, she planned to keep it for herself. If it weren't for so many things that happened in the palace and the sudden appearance of Shun Yueji, she could only reluctantly take out her favorite fox fur sable to please the Empress Dowager when she learned that Shun Yueji had been called to eat by the Empress Dowager. Originally, she just wanted to make the Empress Dowager happy, but she never thought. First published on the new August Chinese network. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 874. They probably didn't expect this woman to be so scheming. In the harem, there were many concubines like her. She had already disposed of them. How could they have the chance to use her to please her brother, the emperor and the Empress Dowager? If she was willing to sit at the same table with Shun Yueji just now, it was because of the Empress Dowager. She wanted to compete with her. After all, the Empress Dowager had watched her grow up. She didn't believe that the Empress Dowager would favor her, an outsider. On the surface, the Empress Dowager said that she was wrong, but in fact, she knew that the Empress Dowager was still on her side. But now, how could the Empress Dowager only be partial to her? She knew that she was secretly competing with Shun Yueji, but she still sided with her. She ate what she gave her, but not what she ate. Thinking of this, Pang Yuan felt inexplicably wronged, but she didn't want to lose her temper in front of Shun Yueji, lest Shun Yueji think that she was easy to bully. She was an imperial concubine of the Dark North Kingdom. In this harem, who dared to look down on her? Her brother, the emperor, only had a momentary liking for her. She believed that one day, her brother, the emperor, would despise her. Thinking of this, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better. Although she was unwilling to admit it, she still said, "WNR almost forgot about this. Since the Empress Dowager doesn't have a good appetite, why didn't she tell me so that I could get some vegetables for you? Look at what I'm doing now. I'm afraid that people will laugh at me." Xian laughed. In this harem, who dares to laugh at you? Jia is no exception. Shun Yueji smiled slightly. Of course. How did you find the time to come to my Mercy Palace today to visit me? Xian glanced at her and asked. Pang Yuan pouted. Empress Dowager, you're talking as if I'm not filial to you. When did I not come to visit you? Unless I'm busy talking to my brother. www.com. Speaking of this, she also glanced at Shun Yueji quite proudly. She thought that this woman would be a little emotional when she mentioned her brother, but she didn't even want to look at her. Instead, she concentrated on drinking tea. This infuriated her so much that she gritted her teeth. Empress Dowager, Wana came prepared this time. She's not like someone who came to freeload. Guifei Nyangnyang's words are wrong. Shun Gunyang was invited by the Empress Dowager to have a meal together with this servant, and is not here to freeload. Nanny Zhu kindly reminded her. Pang Yuan fiercely glared at her and put on a fake smile. Shun Gunyang is really likable. It hasn't been long since you came to the northern underworld, but you've already moved the white-haired granny. Now even Zhu Momo, the person who is the most difficult for her to take a liking to, is now full of praise for you. Perhaps, this is the difference between me and the imperial consort. You. All right. Xian waved his hand and glanced at her. WNR, did you come to see me, or did you want me to watch you two argue? After all, I am an old man. I don't want to get involved in the affairs of you young people. You just need to remember what I told you before. Empress Dowager. Pang Yuan tugged at her wide sleeves and said coquettishly, look at you. Why would WNR come here to bicker with an irrelevant person? WNR has come to deliver something to you. Take a look. Huashin, if you want to chat about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get yourself with more like-minded people, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend Tilda. Chapter 875. She clapped her hands. Xiao came in with something covered with a red cloth. She looked quite mysterious. Pang Yuan smiled proudly. Empress Dowager, guess what kind of treasure WNA found for you? Oh, I didn't know that WNA cares about me. You even know to give me a gift. This was quite beyond Xian's expectation. She smiled with her eyes slightly narrowed. She followed her words and said, "What will WNA give me? Let Ari Jiao think about it carefully." www.com. She thought for a long time, but she really couldn't figure out what Pang Yuan would give her. She shook her head. WNA, it's really hard for me. I really don't know what you are selling. Quickly let Xiao lift the red cloth and let me see. Why are you giving Ari Jiao a gift out of nowhere? She was the Empress Dowager of the Northern Underworld. Ordinary gifts were nothing to her. Pang Yuan's status was not low, so the gift she took out must not be simple. As expected. Although Xiao lifted the red cloth mysteriously, she saw that under the red cloth, there was a white fox fur sable. Its fur was of the highest quality. Moreover, it was rare to find such a large fox with such smooth fur in the Dark North Kingdom. Even the wives of the noble families in the capital city could not achieve such a glossy fur with a fox fur sable. It was the only one of its kind. Empress Dowager, look, this fox fur sable was something WNA obtained with great difficulty. As soon as WNA obtained it, I immediately gave it to you to show my filial piety. The weather is getting cold, so you can use this fox fur sable to make a set of clothes. Pang Yuan didn't notice the great change of Xian's expression. She was still complacent. Caught off guard, she was slapped in the face. She was so shocked that her whole body froze for a moment. When she saw that it was Xian who slapped her, she covered her face and stared at her in disbelief. Empress Dowager, what did I do wrong? Why did you hit me? Fox fur. Pang Yuan, I thought you were straightforward, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Out of anger, Xian's chest heaved up and down. There was no time to reprimand him. As soon as he finished speaking, his vision suddenly darkened, and he fainted. Nanny Zhu reacted quickly and reached out to support Xian, who was on the verge of collapse, in her arms. As Xian fainted, She was also shocked. I'll go call the imperial physician. There's no need, Miss Double Happiness. The Empress Dowager is just angry. It's not a big deal. She'll be fine after a short rest. Nanny Zhu stopped Shi and helped Xian into the inner hall. She quickly came out and looked at Pang Yuan, whose face was pale from fright and unable to speak. Since Guifei Nyang is sincerely filial to the Empress Dowager, you should know what to avoid and ask about the things that the Empress Dowager doesn't like, so as to avoid making a fool of yourself. This servant will not tell His Majesty about this matter. I also hope that Guifei Nyang will behave herself. Pang Yuan didn't know what had happened at all. She loved the fox fur sable so much that she couldn't put it down. Originally, she planned to keep it for herself. If it weren't for so many things that happened in the palace and the sudden appearance of Shen Yueji, she could only reluctantly take out her favorite fox fur sable to please the Empress Dowager when she learned that Shen Yueji had been called to eat by the Empress Dowager. Originally, she just wanted to make the Empress Dowager happy, but she never thought. First published on the new August Chinese network. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. Chapter 876. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? Who would have thought that when the Empress Dowager saw the fox fur sable, she was not as happy as she had expected. Instead, she was so angry that she fainted. Nanny Zhu, Imperial Consort, it's better if you take this fox fur sable back. This servant still has to serve the Empress Dowager. Pang Yuan had no choice. She didn't know what had happened to the Empress Dowager, but she had become like this. Pang Yuan was afraid that if she stayed any longer, when her brother, the Emperor, came, she wouldn't be able to deal with him. She could only leave with red eyes. Before she left, she glared at Shen Yueji. The Empress Dowager was already like this, but she could still sit there calmly, not worried at all. Miss Shen, the Empress Dowager suddenly fell ill. I'm afraid she can't. It's okay, my maid also knows some medical skills. Why don't we let Double Happiness take a look at the Empress Dowager? Nanny Zhu didn't hesitate and made way for them. When the Empress Dowager was young, she raised a fox. When she led them into the inner hall, Granny Zhu suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at Shen Yueji. Shen Yueji nodded. I guessed it. Just now, I saw that Miss Shen was so calm and composed, unlike Imperial Consort Pang who was panicking. I guessed that Miss Shen must have guessed something. When the Empress Dowager was young, she raised the fox for 3 years and named it Tuanzi. Because Tuanzi was born with snow-white skin and was very intelligent, it even saved the Empress Dowager's life when she was helpless. But later, it died trying to save the Empress Dowager and was tortured to death. The Empress Dowager was heartbroken, and she couldn't get over it for a long time. Even after so many years, some people and some things will almost be forgotten after a long time. But Tuanzi's importance in Empress Dowager's heart is equal to that of the late emperor. People all think that Empress Dowager is the happiest person in the world. She married the emperor and got so much favor, but they don't know, the Empress Dowager didn't have a happy life. Before she met the late emperor, the only person she could rely on was Tuanzi. After Tuanzi died, if she hadn't met the late emperor, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have become what she is today. Nanny Zhu sighed and said, just now, concubine Pang sent a fox fur sable. Its smooth and white fur is very similar to the scene when Tuanzi was skinned alive. On the computer, that was why the Empress Dowager, he was so agitated and angry that he became like this. This matter was not worth concealing in Dark North. Through this matter, it was enough to show that Pang Yuan had never really taken the Empress Dowager seriously during these years of living together, even in her heart. If she really had the Empress Dowager as an elder in her heart, she would not have been afraid of the Empress Dowager, would not have known nothing about the Empress Dowager's dislike, and would not have come here with the fox fur sable to claim credit. Originally, she had good intentions, but it turned out to be a fool, resulting in the current situation. She checked the Empress Dowager's pulse seriously. Indeed, it was just anger attacking the heart. There was no general problem. He would be fine after resting for a while. Seeing that the Empress Dowager was fine, Shen Yueji took her leave. Nanny Zhu escorted them out of Xian Palace. Nanny Zhu. Miss Shen. There's something I don't understand. I'd like to ask Nanny Zhu for advice. Zhu Mama nodded. If Miss Shen has anything to say, please ask. This servant will definitely answer truthfully. Today, the Empress Dowager suddenly invited me to dinner. I wonder if it is as I thought, a Hongmen banquet. New Bei Chinese website. Com if you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat, chat about life and find bosom friends Tilda. Chapter 877. Miss. Faced with Shen Ying expressing her suspicions so straightforwardly, not only was she so shocked that she wanted to stop her, but even Nanny Zhu couldn't help raising her head to take a few more glances at Shen Ying. Suddenly, Nanny Zhu smiled and asked, Miss Shen, why do you have such thoughts? The Empress Dowager wants to understand me, but after the last meeting, she found that she didn't see through me. Although I'm the woman that the Emperor likes, she is the Emperor's biological mother after all. Apart from that, the identity of a member of the royal family is that a mother has no choice about what kind of woman her son marries. She wants to test me to see if I'm suitable to be the Emperor's woman. www.com. If the Empress Dowager wakes up and hears Miss Shen's words, she will be so happy that she can't close her mouth. Why? Zhu Mami shook her head and smiled. Miss Shen is really smart. Not only the Emperor didn't misjudge you, but also the Empress Dowager. Miss Shen's guess is right. The Empress Dowager really wants to test you, and this servant also knows about this test. She took a step forward. The Empress Dowager originally wanted to pretend to be poisoned after eating the food that Miss Shen gave her. She wanted to see your reaction and how the Emperor would deal with this matter. Would she be like the other women in the harem, so scared that they turned pale and didn't even dare to explain, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing to beg for forgiveness, or loudly refuting for herself. Miss Shen, women who enter the harem must have courage and insight. If they don't even have courage and intelligence, they are not suitable to survive in the harem. No matter what happens between Miss Shen and the emperor in the future, at least for now, you are in the harem. In front of so many women in the harem, things like initial intentions are not suitable. Listening to Zhu Mami's words, Shen Yueji couldn't help but admire Cin. According to her understanding of Cin, she knew that after the Empress Dowager entered the palace, she was favored by the former emperor. For her, the former emperor even left the harem of 3,000 beauties. No man in this world could do this, but the former emperor did it. Just from this, it could be seen that in the eyes of the former emperor, the throne and her, which was more important. She had been protected so well by the late emperor, so she knew that in the harem, everyone was thinking about self-preservation. Everyone would climb up at any cost in order to get what they wanted. Perhaps, the reason why the former emperor dispersed his harem of 3,000 beauties was to protect her. Thank you for reminding me, Granny Zhu. I'll keep it in mind. She said goodbye to Nanny Zhu. Shen Yueji returned to Zhengyang Palace. Along the way, Shuangshi followed behind her. His mind was in a reverie, but he could not come up with a general idea. Huashin Originals, domain names, please remember Miss. Hearing her calling herself, Shen Yueji stopped and looked back at her. What's wrong? There's one thing this servant doesn't understand. What is it? That's what Nanny Zhu meant. What does she mean by first love? Isn't it inappropriate for so many women in the harem? Hearing this, Shen Yueji suddenly smiled and tapped her head. Double happiness. Do you know how long you can survive if you really enter the harem with your IQ? Shuangshi, I won't enter the palace. Miss, don't make fun of me. I don't want to be a pet in a golden cage. I yearn for freedom. Oh, freedom. If you follow me into the palace, won't you also be a pet in a golden cage? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 878. That's not the same. Miss is a pet, and a servant is the water and food that the pet drinks. The nature is different. How can a servant be so precious? Shen Yueji was amused by her analogy. Granny Zhu is implying something, including Shangguan Mai coming to see me. What? The Empress Dowager knows about Shangguan Mai coming to see you? The entire Dark North Kingdom belongs to the Empress Dowager. What doesn't she know? Shen Yueji rolled her eyes. Granny Zhu means the Empress Dowager. She wants me to agree to cooperate with Shangguan Mai and get Pang Yuan off the stage first. This, Shuangshi found it hard to believe. Miss, don't you think the Empress Dowager is being too ruthless? She watched Pang Yuan grow up, and we've only been in the Dark North Kingdom for a few days, but the Empress Dowager is on the same side as us for you. Is there a conspiracy? Although she watched Pang Yuan grow up, she's still an outsider's child to her. In addition, she's indulged and spoiled Pang Yuan all these years. Who knows how many shameful things she's done for Pang Yuan. The Empress Dowager's kindness to Pang Yuan is just a compensation to an old friend. If an old friend didn't save her, do you think Pang Yuan would be here today? Miss, you mean, the Empress Dowager has lost her patience with Consort Pang? Shen Yueji nodded. Didn't you see how the Empress Dowager looked at the fox? It's obvious that Granny Zhu didn't exaggerate. The Empress Dowager has deep feelings for foxes, but Pang Yuan keeps violating the Empress Dowager's taboo. How can the Empress Dowager continue to tolerate her? But, she wanted to say something else, but she stopped talking after thinking of something. Shen Yueji didn't ask anymore. The only thing I don't understand is that Granny Zhu revealed that I'm working with Shangguan Mai. But if we really bring down Pang Yuan and make public what she's done, not only the officials in the court, but also the people in the capital, who can really forgive her? Unless... She paused. Unless the Empress Dowager left a perfect plan for Pang Yuan. In this way, even if she is brought down, she can keep her life. Her father is the Grand Tutor of the Northern Underworld dynasty. As long as her father is here, she can live a carefree life of wealth and splendor. This servant also feels that Mrs. words are reasonable. It seems that the Empress Dowager must have made a foolproof plan for Pang Yuan. Otherwise, she wouldn't have allowed Miss to join hands with Shangguan Mai. But isn't Shangguan Mai untrustworthy? Miss, the Empress Dowager has already vaguely revealed this layer of meaning. What do you think? Do you want to join hands with Shangguan Mai? Shin Yueji shook her head. Why don't you think about it? Where did Pang Yuan get the fox fur sable? How did such a precious thing end up in her hands? This fox fur sable must have been given to her by someone. She wouldn't forget the look of envy and reluctance in Pang Yuan's eyes when she gave the fox fur sable to the Empress Dowager. If it was her own thing, she would have liked it very much. But after wearing it for a while, she would have liked it less. But Pang Yuan was different. Not only her facial expression, but also her demeanor, including when she asked Xiao to take out the fox fur sable, the reluctance and love in her eyes. Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Messing with Clawbook House for free. Chapter 879. At first, Yue wanted to say that Pang Yuan was shameless. However, because of Pang Yuan's status and the fact that she was in a fit of anger, she didn't dare to believe that Pang Yuan would really kill her if she really dared to say it. Therefore, she forcibly replaced the shameless words that were already at the tip of her tongue with ruthlessness. The fastest network update on the computer, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better when she saw that it wasn't a verbal abuse, but a simple reason. He was also less impulsive. But just as Yue lowered her guard, she suddenly raised her hand and gave Shangguan Mai another tight slap. 2 slaps landed on her delicate face. Due to her anger, she was as strong as a man. Shangguan Mai felt that both sides of her cheeks were in so much pain that she could not control herself. Especially, both sides of her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. She swallowed the blood that had come to her mouth. Looking at Pang Yuan, he suddenly laughed. Noble consort Pang, now you've slapped me and vented your anger. You're Grand Preceptor Pang's daughter, and you've never suffered any grievances since you were a child. You should know that before I entered the palace, I was the apple of my family's eye in the Shangguan residence. Neither my father nor my mother had ever hit me. Now that I've been slapped twice by you, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, my Shangguan family will pursue this matter to the end even if we have to pay the price in blood. Originals, domain names, please remember pursue the matter to the end. Pang Yuan smiled coldly. How? Just because of your Shangguan family? Or do you want to bring your father here? Shangguan Mai, you were right about one thing. Although the Shangguan family is an important official in the Dark North Kingdom and your father is a first-rank official, I can revoke your father's official position with just a word. My father only needs to charge your father with any crime. Not to mention becoming a commoner, it wouldn't be too much for me to take your life. Be it the ministers of the imperial court or the common people of the capital, they all flock to my Pang family, not your Shangguan family. Imperial consort Pang, don't push me too far. You step down. Empress, I'm telling you to back off, can't you hear me? Yue stomped her feet in anger but did not dare to say a word. She could only unwillingly retreat behind Shangguan Mai. She was afraid that Pang Yuan would attack her concubine again, so she glared at Pang Yuan like a tiger watching its prey. She was deeply afraid that Pang Yuan would attack again. She reacted quickly and was able to stop her in time. These 2 slaps were ruthless enough. Pang Yuan was also tired. He shook his numb hands. The numbness in his hands had not subsided for a long time. Shangguan Mai, are you trying to harm me? It would have been better if Yue hadn't mentioned the fox fur sable. Pang Yuan's stomach was originally filled with anger, but because of the 2 slaps, she felt much better. Who knew that Yue would suddenly mention it again? Without a doubt, this was purposely poking at her sore spot. If she didn't give her a slap, how would she be able to vent her anger? The slap that the Empress Dowager gave her, she still faintly felt pain, especially in front of that slut Shen Yueji. She didn't know how much face she had lost. Did you already know that the Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young and that she had a deep relationship with that fox? And that fox was also skinned alive by someone? Shangguan Mai was stunned when she heard this. Sister, what are you talking about? The Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young. Shangguan Mai, don't play dumb with me. Do you think that I will believe you if you pretend to be innocent? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 880. Even though the Empress Dowager was experienced and could see things clearly, she could not see that Pang Yuan had been tricked by someone, and that the person who had tricked her was Shangguan Mai. Shuang, she felt that she had to tell the Empress Dowager about this. First published on the websiteway.com. Why should we tell the Empress Dowager? She has already made it very clear. She wants us to fight among ourselves. Whether we live or die, it has nothing to do with her. Shuang, she suddenly went online and hugged her arm. Miss, what are you saying? The son-in-law cannot bear to see anything happen to you. Even if we die, it will be them. Shen Yueji poked her nose in amusement. Moreover, we are not allowed to interfere in this matter. I believe that Pang Yuan has already gone to Shangguan Mai's place. No matter how smart Shangguan Mai is, she would not have expected that Pang Yuan would go crazy and not care about her status or the occasion. Then, miss, what do you think Pang Yuan will do to Shangguan Mai? Concubine Mai will naturally be beaten up. To be precise, Pang Yuan will go to Charming Palace. Shangguan Mai will welcome her with a smile, but Pang Yuan will not give her a chance to explain. She will slap her to vent her anger first. At this moment, in Charming Palace, Pang Yuan had been expected to come. Shangguan Mai had already ordered people to stand guard outside. Especially when she saw Pang Yuan storming into the main hall. To be honest, Shangguan Mai was shocked. She thought that Pang Yuan would at least put on the airs of an imperial concubine. She did not expect that she would be so angry that she did not even put on airs and rushed in. She quickly got up and welcomed her with a smile. Slap. A slap landed on her face, catching her off guard. She covered the swollen side of her face, and even the corner of her mouth was bleeding. Shangguan Mai's expression did not change. Yu, who was beside her, quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood from her mouth. Pang Yuan was not satisfied with the slap and wanted to hit her again. Yu was anxious to protect her heart. She stood in front of Shangguan Mai and took the slap. Imperial consort, I don't know what mistake this servant's consort has made to make you so angry that you angrily rushed over and hit my consort without distinguishing between right and wrong. Her voice was filled with anger, and her eyes were red with anger. Your Pang family has an illustrious position in the court, but that doesn't mean that my Shangguan family can be bullied by you. Imperial consort, I hope that you can conduct yourself with dignity, self-respect. Pang Yuan sneered coldly, not taking her threat seriously at all. Seeing that Yu was protecting Shangguan Mai and that she couldn't hit Shangguan Mai, she couldn't help but get even angrier. She slapped Yu even harder. You lowly servant girl, get out of my way. It's not up to you to tell me how to punish someone. Today, I'm going to beat her to death. Shangguan Mai's eyes were cold under the curtain. Your Highness, do you know what kind of behavior you are doing now? First, domain name. Please remember Yu was so angry that she couldn't care less about the difference between master and servant. She glared fiercely at Shangguan Mai. You should know that my consort treats Imperial Consort Pang with sincerity. Even after receiving such a precious fox fur sable, Imperial Consort Pang liked it very much. However, when she thought that Imperial Consort Pang liked it even more, she endured the pain and gave the fox fur sable to Imperial Consort Pang. Who would have thought that Imperial Consort Pang would turn against her the moment she received it? There must be a limit to being heartless. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 881. At first, Yue wanted to say that Pang Yuan was shameless. However, because of Pang Yuan's status and the fact that she was in a fit of anger, she didn't dare to believe that Pang Yuan would really kill her if she really dared to say it. Therefore, she forcibly replaced the shameless words that were already at the tip of her tongue with ruthlessness. The fastest network update on the computer, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better when she saw that it wasn't a verbal abuse, but a simple reason. He was also less impulsive. But just as Yue lowered her guard, she suddenly raised her hand and gave Shangguan Mai another tight slap. 2 slaps landed on her delicate face. Due to her anger, she was as strong as a man. Shangguan Mai felt that both sides of her cheeks were in so much pain that she could not control herself. Especially, both sides of her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. She swallowed the blood that had come to her mouth. Looking at Pang Yuan, he suddenly laughed. "Noble consort Pang, now you've slapped me and vented your anger. You're Grand Preceptor Pang's daughter, and you've never suffered any grievances since you were a child. You should know that before I entered the palace, I was the apple of my family's eye in the Shangguan residence. Neither my father nor my mother had ever hit me. Now that I've been slapped twice by you, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, my Shangguan family will pursue this matter to the end, even if we have to pay the price in blood. Originals, domain names, please remember pursue the matter to the end." Pang Yuan smiled coldly. "How? Just because of your Shangguan family? Or do you want to bring your father here?" "Shangguan Mai, you were right about one thing. Although the Shangguan family is an important official in the Dark North Kingdom and your father is a first-rank official, I can revoke your father's official position with just a word. My father only needs to charge your father with any crime. Not to mention becoming a commoner, it wouldn't be too much for me to take your life. Be it the ministers of the imperial court or the common people of the capital, they all flock to my Pang family, not your Shangguan family. Imperial consort Pang, don't push me too far. Yue, step down. Empress, I'm telling you to back off, can't you hear me?" Yue stomped her feet in anger but did not dare to say a word. She could only unwillingly retreat behind Shangguan Mai. She was afraid that Pang Yuan would attack her concubine again, so she glared at Pang Yuan like a tiger watching its prey. She was deeply afraid that Pang Yuan would attack again. She reacted quickly and was able to stop her in time. These 2 slaps were ruthless enough. Pang Yuan was also tired. He shook his numb hands. The numbness in his hands had not subsided for a long time. "Shangguan Mai, are you trying to harm me? It would have been better if Yue hadn't mentioned the fox fur sable." Pang Yuan's stomach was originally filled with anger, but because of the 2 slaps, she felt much better. Who knew that Yue would suddenly mention it again? Without a doubt, this was purposely poking at her sore spot. If she didn't give her a slap, how would she be able to vent her anger? The slap that the Empress Dowager gave her, she still faintly felt pain, especially in front of that slut Shen Yueji. She didn't know how much face she had lost. Did you already know that the Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young and that she had a deep relationship with that fox? And that fox was also skinned alive by someone? Shangguan Mai was stunned when she heard this. "Sister, what are you talking about? The Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young." "Shangguan Mai, don't play dumb with me. Do you think that I will believe you if you pretend to be innocent? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.